You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. It's great to have you here back again today for this Total Wellness Tuesday, where we're going to go over the complete plan of how we help people heal their digestion. I've done previous shows on Candida, on SIBO, on parasites, on H. pylori. I've done all sorts of different protocols. I've done food sensitivity testing. What I wanted to do today was take you through exactly how we work with people in our private practice, and we give people that same ability to do that anywhere, almost in the world, 19 countries around the world. But I'm also sharing this for all the practitioners out there listening, and I'm sharing it for you if you have a favorite practitioner that you love to work with and you get along well with, that they seem to fit your needs. You can run these same exact protocols with them. Let's say that you're working with one of the integrative health practitioners. Let's say you have a naturopathic doctor, you have a functional medicine doctor, you have someone that also specializes in digestion in the gut. Because this is not your average get well type protocol. This is not taking one probiotic and calling it a day. True digestive based issues, and if you listen to last week's podcast, autoimmune, allergy, asthma, ADD, ADHD, etc., autism spectrum disorders, you have to look towards your gut. So if you're not doing that, we're going to also teach you how to do that today. Believe it or not, most diseases of the body start with or are exacerbated by the gut. And we'll go through what that means and exactly how we help people heal, all within our timeline of essentially 25 minutes. So we're going to make it all happen. You can go back, you can play it again, you can share it with your practitioner, you can share it with a friend, a family member, whoever you believe needs this information now or in the future. I want it to be there for you. And I always give away exactly what we do in our practice. And you can even see the products we use. You can look at the back of the labels. You can look at the tests we use. We want to open source this. We will help you if you would like to work with us, but I'm saying right now, you can also do this on your own. You could do this with a health practitioner, okay? So let me take you through exactly what we do. We have a lot to cover, but we're going to go through this A to Z right now. I'm going to give you this in an ideal world, what I would like for you. It's how I got well. It's reluctantly. I was reluctant. I didn't do it in the beginning, and I want to share with you why. And so I want to say, hey, if you want to do this right from the beginning, here's what we want to do. Now, you may not be able to afford some of the labs. You may not be there yet. That's okay. I wasn't either. I started with a adrenal hormone test and then eventually a food sensitivity test, and then I just worked my way up, okay? So would it have been better for me to do the big five right away? Yes, but here's the thing. By the time I made it to that alternative medicine doctor, and I'm using that in air quotes, I actually laugh every time I say alternative medicine doctor, I was 19 years old. 2 years. 2 years of suffering from all sorts of debilitating diseases of the body, right? Addison's disease, myalgic encephalomyelitis. I had type 2 diabetes. I had autoimmune-based issues, rheumatoid arthritis. I had POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, hypoglycemia. I mean, all sorts of issues, right? Fibromyalgia, migraines, you name it, because my body was breaking down. So had I done the big five, which we will link up the show on that. I'm going to take lots of notes for myself today so that my team and I are able to get this information for you. So I will link up the show on what the big five labs are. I'm not going to make this a labs-based show. I just want to take you from the top, because stress can cause issues with your gut. So yes, a stress type lab, a thyroid adrenal hormone would certainly help. But what if we're whittling down? What if we're saying, what are the crucial components to really look what's going on in your gut? There's three main labs, okay? Three main labs, and the first and foremost is the organic acids test. That's the one that you're going to want to look at first. And the reason is it's so comprehensive, and it's the only true lab that's going to give you a good readout on candida overgrowth. A lot of doctors right now, and rightly so, are looking for SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And they look for that because of, people are on so many antibiotics, or they're on NSAIDs like Advil and ibuprofen, or they're on Prilosec or an acid blocker. They're on all these drugs that's weakening their digestive system and their good bacteria in their gut. It's causing gut dysbiosis. So SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. That means there's too much bacteria growing in your intestines, okay? We're going to really simplify this. Now, when I say gut dysbiosis, all it means is an imbalance of bacteria in your intestines. That means there's essentially 100 trillion bacteria in your gut. There's only about 40 trillion cells in our body, give or take a couple trillion. I don't think anyone's truly counted. But when we look at, per square inch, we can figure it out. That's how we look at it. There's actually more good, hopefully good gut bacteria. Well, when you have too much of the negative forms that we still need in our body, well, we have gut dysbiosis. Very, very common with acid blockers, with antibiotics, with most pharmaceuticals, with tap water that contains chlorine or fluoride, many, many different drugs, okay? And also poor eating, alcohol, stress, etc. So what I'd like to do, and I can link up a show, and I'll link up a show on leaky gut, so I'll do that for you as well. But what I want to say is this. When you run that organic acids test, it's also going to look at candida, which is yeast overgrowth. Here's the thing about candida overgrowth. A lot of times, we give those antibiotics, then we take a probiotic. Okay, great, good start. Better than nothing. But no one ever tells you that when you're taking the antibiotic, you really need a product like Clean Gut Probiotic. Now, why would you need that? And again, I'm going to give you exactly what it is. So if you want to come up with your own product, that's okay too. Saccharomyces boulardii. What is Saccharomyces boulardii? And I'll do a show on this. It's a beneficial, non-pathogenic yeast that actually pushes out and crowds out more pathogenic or negative forms of yeast, like candida overgrowth. And it's transient, which means it only sticks and hangs around for about 2 to 5 days. And then it moves on its way. So then when you're putting in the good probiotics that are in that Clean Gut Probiotic, or your favorite product, they're actually going to be able to stick, right? And they have places because you need to open up place markers. So that's the goal. Now, why do I mention that? Because antibiotics will, for the most part, wipe out bacterial overgrowth. That's its job. But what it does not do is kill yeast. So then a lot of doctors will say, okay, well, we're going to give some diflucan or some nystatin. Better than nothing, right? But it's another pharma-based drug, harder on the liver. Do we really want to do that? In my opinion, only if we have to. That's it, only if we have to. And in our practice, we don't have to. There's not a need for it because I'm going to lay out the plan for you. So you run the organic acids test at 75 biomarkers. It's not just for digestion, but the first page shows digestion, candida overgrowth, good bacteria, and then it shows Clostridia-based bacteria that we would, of course, want to wipe out. Then it will show energy utilization. It will show oxalate sensitivity. It will show your vitamins levels. It will show your detox. It's an amazing lab. That's number one. Number two is you run a stool test. Now, why would you run a stool test if you run an organic acids test? Here's why. You can't find H. pylori and you can't find parasites on an organic acids test. One test isn't going to solve everything. And remember, blood work is going to solve none of this. These are functional medicine labs that your MD won't have unless they're a true functional medicine doctor that specializes in gut. Then they're going to be able to do that. And I recommend a 3-day stool test. Why? It's because we run a 3-day stool test, and sometimes if we would only run a 1, you can see on day 1, nothing was caught. But on day 3, it was. We saw parasites. So now if you have parasites, well, we know that we need to work on that. But we don't want to do necessarily a parasite protocol. You can if we have a lot of other stuff to do, right? And we don't want to do it all if we already have a lot to do. So we don't have to do that if there are no parasites. And then you can look for H. pylori. Now, H. pylori, don't do the breath test. I'm telling you, unless it's active, you're not going to find it. Blood test is fine. I'd rather do a stool test. I really would. That's how it's going to come out of your body anyways. You might as well look there. I love that for H. pylori. And then it will also show bacterial overgrowth. Now, it looks at yeast, but a stool test is not the best at finding yeast, even if it says it looks for it. Here's why. And again, I'm always honest with you. And it's not like we could just say, oh, we'll do the stool test and we'll look for yeast. It shows up a lot of times missing, and an organic acid test finds it. And here's why. By the time that candida makes it all the way out of that 23, 25 feet of intestine, it's dead. It's no longer there. It doesn't survive on the way to the lab. All right, so it's important to look at it. Maybe in the future, but for sure, not right now. The last one is a food sensitivity test. I prefer the IgG perspective. We'll link up a podcast as to why IgG versus IgE. I have no problem with testing IgE. The problem is always expense. I try not to make these things super expensive for people. We pay for the lab. So keep in mind, they're not our labs. We're a lab company only in the fact that we get you the lab because a doctor has to sign off on it. So we get you the labs, but they're not our labs. We don't formulate them. We don't make them. We actually, yes, we do. I should say we do pick and choose what we want on there. Yes, we do that. But we don't process it. We actually pay for these labs. So, of course, there's a charge to it. Now, I put that one last. And the reason is this, is that we're going to give you an elimination diet anyways that's going to remove the most egregious forms of food sensitivities, and then you can begin to add them back in and test. So I love all three of those tests. I recommend all three of those for the gut. But if you were to take one off, I would take off the food. There is special pricing when you do all of them at once, so it's a nice thing to look at. And again, typically most doctors will do this, and integrative health practitioners will do this as well. So it's not just us, it's just the more labs you can do, the more the preferential pricing you get from the lab as well. So everybody wins, right? You just try to pass that on, because the bottom line is this. If you're tired of being sick and tired of having digestive issues, you can pinpoint it with functional medicine labs. That's the amazing thing, and that's why I love them. It allowed me to see that I had candida overgrowth, I had SIBO, and I had H. pylori. I wasn't working on those until I found them. So when I found the 3 out of the 4 issues with the gut, I began to work on those. Now, back then, many years ago, I didn't have access to the best protocols. 20 years ago, I didn't have this great knowledge base that we have now, but I experimented. And that was great too, because now in hindsight, I can say, I've tried everything. I've done candida diets, and I can tell you that candida diets don't work. And we'll link up that podcast too. So we've got a bunch of continuing education if you'd like that as well. Everything today, I'll just say this once, everything today will be linked up at StephenCabral.com/1299. StephenCabral.com/1299. I hope that's the correct number for the show today. All right, so all the links will be up there. The previous podcasts, you can go check those out. All right, so now let's say that you do have yeast overgrowth, that you have parasites, or you have H. pylori, or you have candida overgrowth. Now, what do we most commonly see? Okay, 9 out of 10 people, some bacterial overgrowth. 9 out of 10 people, some candida overgrowth if you have bloating or acid reflux or cramping or gas or loose stool or constipation, acid reflux, etc. Okay, so that's what we typically see. We don't see as much of the parasites in the H. pylori. Now, we still do, but it's not as prevalent. And there are many reasons for that. You actually have to, I want to say catch. It's not the best word for it, but you actually have to catch H. pylori as that bacteria. And same with parasites. Now, keep in mind, about 1/3 of the population on Earth has a parasite, believe it or not. And I go through this in the Integrative Health Practitioner education. That's at integrativehealthpractitioner.org if you really want to take things to the next level. So here's the thing, though. I want to share with you today, 9 out of 10 people, this is what we need to do. So you can do the labs, or you can choose to go right into the protocol. I want to help you in the best way that I can. And I know not everyone's going to do the labs. Why do I recommend the labs? Well, not only do you get the data that actually shows you exactly what you need to do, there's no guessing, but you also then are working with a practitioner that's going to walk you through the protocol and diet plan that you need, or you're, again, working with one of our coaches. So one way, hopefully, you're getting coached on this process, because more likely than not, but maybe you are, because 1/3 of my practice is working with other doctors and other practitioners, and it's amazing. But a lot of times, even people in the field, this is not stuff that you're taught in medical school. You learn it when you do internships. You learn it through working in clinical practice and seeing actually what works. That's how we learn, and then eventually it makes its way to college, right? It makes its way to all the different universities. So, all right, so let's start to go through this now. This is exactly what we do. So you either ran the labs and you're going to do this, or you ran the labs and everything's good, so you don't need to do this. That's great. here's what our Candida and bacterial overgrowth protocol is. And you can use this, you can copy it, you can order it, you can do whatever you want. But here's the thing. I just want one caveat with this. You're either doing the Candida and bacterial overgrowth protocol or you're not. Like, that's the bottom line. I have so many people write in and say, I did something similar to your protocol. I can't help you if it's similar to the protocol, because I did protocols that were similar to the protocol. I can only give you what I know works clinically, and I can back up with lab tests. That's all I can say. Like, that's it. So I don't know. Maybe it was perfect. Maybe it was great. I don't know. But what I do know is that this works. So if you do this, I know it's going to work with you. And then I'm going to give you the other tweaks that might be needed if you're not getting the progress that you want, right? So like 99 out of 100, you're going to get results. What happens if you're that 1 out of 100 and everybody thinks they're the 1 out of 100 they're going to be, right? I used to think that as well. Then you just make adjustments. You make tweaks. Almost like if you go after a goal in life, do you ever usually get it your first time? Like when you try something new, right? The first time you shot a basketball, what are the odds that you got that in the net the very first time? It probably didn't even come close, right? But what you do is you recalibrate, you readjust, you find your distance, you line your elbow up, you do all of those things. And then every time. So all you typically need is adjustments. Let's go through it right now. So you're going to do an elimination-based diet. We use something called a sensitive gut guide. Why this was developed is because it's anti-inflammatory, it's lower glycemic, it's easy to digest foods, it's overall lower lectin or aggravating type foods. It is lower FODMAP, which are the lower fructo, oligo, di, mono, and polysaccharide-based fruit, vegetable, and starches, so that we're not feeding any of the yeast or bacterial overgrowth. But it still does include vegetables. It still includes about 2 dozen fruit. It still includes some starches. And a lot of people say, oh, you're not allowed to eat those on a Candida diet. And then I say, you're right, you weren't a decade, 15 years ago, but that's old information. We know now that you're able to eat foods that contain more glucose molecules than fructose molecules. And here's why. Those glucose-based molecules will help shuttle the fructose molecules out of the gut, upper part of the gut, stomach, first part of the small intestine, before they make their way to the yeast and bacteria, where they would begin to ferment, causing gas and bloating. However, there's always a caveat. Everyone's going to have 1 or 2 foods that still cause them bloating. So you can't eat those foods. We tell people to test plant proteins. If you use chickpeas and they cause bloating, even though they're on the list, you still don't eat them. Anything that causes bloating is out. It's out in the beginning. We're going to reintroduce, but for the first 3 weeks, it's clean, right? Very, very clean. Why? We want to reset that gut within essentially 3 weeks. Then what do we do in the 4th week? Well, at that point, we are now testing the gut with new foods. I'll tell you why in just one moment. So what we do is we do this elimination-based diet. You can choose the one that you like. You can choose the one that your practitioner uses. You can choose the one that we use. That's up to you. Supplement-wise, very, very important. Do not start a Candida and bacterial overgrowth protocol with adding more bacteria to the overgrowth. We already said that there's overgrowth. Will adding more bacteria help, especially if there's bifido-based strains in there? The answer is going to be no. We wipe out first. Again, people can say, oh, we use this, we do that. You have to go by what works in clinical practice. Always go by what works in the real world with the science behind it. Here's why it works. We eliminate first. We use Saccharomyces boulardii. We use our herbal, well, that's one product. We use an herbal-based product that's going to contain oregano and powder arco and all sorts of other great herbs that have been clinically proven through science to kill yeast and bacteria. People say, oh, this one's for yeast and it's not for bacteria. That's not true. Almost every product that's antifungal is also antibacterial. Not all, but all of our herbal-based products contain synergies. They work better always in synergies. Some people just use oregano oil. Fine, but I used to run a specific stool test that showed me oregano oil does not work for everyone. Sometimes uva ursi does. Sometimes grapefruit seed extract does. Sometimes oregano oil, yes, does work great. So here's the thing. We use a synergy of all of them because we know that it's going to work then for everyone. We just combine all of them. It makes it easy. And also, we don't have to go super high dose on any one herb, which is kind of what nature intended. And then we use a biofilm disruptor. This is what nobody used to do until, again, I try to teach this as much as I can. And I'm not the only one to do this. I learned this as well. I'm studying the research. I'm studying the science. I didn't make up biofilm disruptors. But what they do is they remove the mucus-based layer, almost like it's a protein and there can be heavy metals in there. It's like a membrane. And you take the house off of all the parasites and candida and bacteria, and then you're able to get those herbs to then dissolve and break up and remove the bacteria and candida, and then you use that Saccharomyces boulardii to take their place so that no other negative forms of bacteria grow, because remember, you're not going to have a sterile gut. That's not the way that it works. Our garden typically never just stays dirt. You'll grow weeds if you're not growing your veggies, right? So that's what we're doing in month 1. Now, at the end of month 1, we've done already a great job at the removal process. What do we do in month 2? Well, we're going to start to reintroduce some foods. We're going to start to reintroduce different types of healthy fat. That's going to be part of it. We might start to introduce some nuts. You might say, well, why didn't you get rid of nuts in the first place? Here's why. Nuts are not a FODMAP necessarily, but what they are hard to break down. So sometimes people just have weak digestion. We'll talk about that at the end. So we make it easy. We want this to be the last time they'll ever have to worry about their gut and digestion again. So in month 2, then, we do start to add some foods back in. We're going to start to add back in some different types of starches if they choose to. Now, why and how will they do that? They're going to use a testing method. And I'm going to do, because I know that I'm not going to be able to get everything in. I'm going to put down for you rotation diet, okay? So I'm going to show you how every 3 days you could test a new food. You could add a new food in and you could say, is it causing me bloating? Yes or no. It's binary. It could cause bloating that day or the next day. Does it cause an issue? Yes or no. The answer is no. You keep it in. It's okay as long as it doesn't cause you brain fog or anything else. Keep it in. Now you have one more food to eat. Good. Let's do it again. Let's do this again. One new variable 3 days from now. What do we add in? Well, choose a food that you like to eat that's on the list. Then we add it back in. We're talking about healthy, whole food. I mean, this is it. Like, this is the way that it works. So at the same time, though, now we're adding in our first strain of a probiotic. This is, again, where people go wrong. Too much too soon. You need to sterilize that small intestine with good bacteria, this time Lactobacillus acidophilus. Why would we use that? Well, the reason is this. Lactobacillus acidophilus is a sterilizing probiotic as well. It has a lower pH. It's meant to. It keeps other bacteria from growing in the small intestine. We'll keep that bacteria towards the end of the small intestine and the large intestine. Great product. We use another biofilm disruptor to keep removing that biofilm. Just 2 weeks, 3 weeks is not enough. We need to work on potentially years or decades of work down there. All right. We also use a stronger herbal-based product because we don't want all of the die-off. So we ease you in then to a stronger herbal-based product. You should feel no change because you've already removed a lot, right? But now we're going to come in with some berberine, right? Some nice antibacterials. We're going to come in with some cinnamon bark. We're going to come in with some ginger and some rosemary extract. So these are great things to help eliminate that bacteria as well. And then by the time we get to month 3, now we're going to add in more of a full spectrum probiotic. Why? That small intestine's where we want it to be. Remember, it's SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. We've removed that. We're now going to start to repopulate more strains of good bacteria. We are going to still use an herbal-based product, one with some stronger caprylic-based acid, which again, it sounds severe. It just comes from coconut oil. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in there and wipe out anything that's left that shouldn't be there. And then instead of using a biofilm disruptor at this point, we're going to go after more subtle bacteria. Maybe there's a low level of H. pylori we didn't see on one of the tests. Okay, we're going to go after that too with some mastic gum. We're going to start to repair the gut mucosa as well with some zinc carnosine, right? We're going to use that berberine. And then we're going, at this point, after 8 weeks, introduce more fruit, introduce any type of the veggies that you want, start to try garlic, start to try the onion. How do those work? Nothing will be off limits. We're going to introduce slowly. You'll have some foods that don't work, some foods that do. Here's the thing. Because some foods don't work does not mean that your plan is not working. It means that your digestive system is still not able to tolerate those foods. Not every human can eat every different type of food, even though it's a so-called good food for you. We have to keep that in mind. Like some foods, like I'm more sensitive to nightshades. I can have a tomato. I can have some potatoes. Give me those 2 meals a day for a couple days in a row. I actually start to feel it. Does that mean there's anything really wrong with me? The answer is absolutely not. But there are some things that genetically really do matter. But you can be a healthy human and just know what works for your body and what doesn't. Now, it has to be a minor amount of foods, right? If you're sensitive to a lot of things, that's a different issue. Now, here's how we fix that, though. After month 3, we literally go in and we seal up that gut wall. This is where the magic begins to happen for autoimmune-based issues, for chronic immune issues, for allergies and asthma and headaches and migraines, etc. We need to seal the gut wall so that proteins are not spewing through every time you eat. That's why people feel so good fasting, because there's nothing new coming in. But the problem is you can't just fast your way through your entire life. You create too much catabolism. Now, fasting is great, but it has its limits, like everything. Go back the last couple of weeks, I've been talking about fasting over and over and over, trying to just share with you two sides to this amazing thing that we have as intermittent fasting. It can heal and rejuvenate the body, or it can begin to break it down faster. It's always about balance, right? It's always about creating equilibrium. So here's what we want to do. We want to now seal the gut wall. Ours is called the CBO finisher, or the healthy gut support mixed with a daily probiotic. Here's the thing though. This is what it contains. It's going to contain more small intestinal probiotics than large. It's going to contain new strains of probiotics to repopulate even more of the gut. And then also the healthy gut support powder. Just put 1 scoop in your smoothie in the morning, you're done. That's all you have to do is 1 scoop. Typically, you want to do this for anywhere from 1, 2, or 3 months. We love the 3 months. Why? It's just 1 scoop in your smoothie. You don't have to think about it. But what it does is it contains glutamine, aloe vera, zinc carnosine, and a DGL, and a couple other great nutrients that your gut wall uses to seal itself back up, to heal, decrease inflammation, and then what that does then is it calms the immune system. If you follow a protocol that does this 99 out of 100 times, you are better in 12 weeks. Now, still seal up that gut wall after that, and don't get egregious and go and really like your gut just healed. So don't put it to the ultimate test. Don't drink for alcohol for 7 days straight and, eat pizza and nachos and like don't test it to that, right? But enjoy life now. Enjoy life. You deserve it. You deserve it, right? So have a cheat meal. Enjoy yourself. We allow 1 cheat meal a week on the program. Once you're healed, you could probably do 2 a week, just not 2 days in a row. But let's say you're that one person out of 100. Well, what do we need to do? Well, let's say that you did great month 1 and then you started to get bloating in month 2. Well, what do we need to look at? Well, here's what we need to do. Did you increase new foods too quickly, or did you start to add different foods together that you didn't in the past? Because sometimes there's just weak digestion, poor digestion, lack of stomach acid. I'm going to be doing a show on lack of stomach acid. Before, you can just go to digestive enzymes, digestive bitters, which we recommend, or ginger tea. Any one of those things will help increase the heat in the stomach. But a lot of times, it's the introduction of something new. That's why sometimes people will go off a little bit in month 2. You introduce too many things too fast. You started to get away from your elimination diet. You started to get away from your 3 meals per day. Now you're snacking between meals. You're eating too close to bed. You started to feel better, so you got too lenient. Not yet. Not yet. Remember, we want to do this once. We want to do it right, and we never want to do it again. That's the goal. So what we need to do is look at what did you introduce? Take it out. Just go back to your weeks 1 through 3 meal plan. Did that fix the bloating issues? It did. Okay, great. Now, just introduce 1 new food at a time for a week. Does it work? Yes or no? If the answer is yes, keep it in. Move to the next one. Remember, this will serve you for the rest of your life. Just a little patience now pays off for the rest of your life. So huge. So huge. I had no patience back in the day. It took me too long. I want to save you all the errors and mistakes I made and what I see happen in my practice. Now, the second thing could be this. In month 2, we add in a probiotic. Maybe your gut still hadn't wiped out enough of the bad bacteria yet. Okay, here's what we do. We keep going with the protocol. It's not that it's not working. Your body just has slower bowel motility, or it had so much overgrowth it's not ready yet for a probiotic. So what we do is this: keep on going, keep going. And if you hadn't already added in the citricidal drops in month 1, or the citrus oil-based drops, because you can use citrus oil-based drops, you'll add them in month 2. For anybody with bacterial overgrowth of Clostridium bacteria or a bacterial overgrowth on a stool test, we always add in those citrus oil or citricidal drops in month 1. And that's very important. That will really help speed up the process and wipe out the candida and bacterial overgrowth. Great, great product. Okay, so that's what we do. So all we do is, okay, we remove the foods, didn't work enough, take out the probiotic. Did that work? Yes. Great. Continue with the plan. Keep on going. Then after month 2, now try adding in the Lactobacillus acidophilus. Remember, there's always a way, and it's typically just a small tweak, which is why if you're in rough shape, if you really are, I understand where you're coming from. Work with a coach. Work with an integrative health practitioner. Work with your naturopathic doctor, your functional medicine doctor. Work with someone that can just simply guide you through the process, because typically it's small tweaks. That's it, right? Small tweaks. That's it. Those small hinges swing big doors. And that's what we're looking for right here. So that's the main tweaks that we need to make with people. If we just feel like, okay, they did the citricidal or the citrus oil drops month 1, we'll add in a product if there's still digestive bloating in month 2 called GI Balance. Because by the time you get to month 2, after 6 weeks, you should really be good. Now, it doesn't mean you're healed yet, right? We're still working on it, but you don't have the digestive bloating and acid reflux and cramping and gas and all that anymore. That's gone, right? So if we need to, we'll pull out one of our heavy hitters, which is GI Balance. And this is, it's basically edible essential oils. It's oregano, it's clove, and it's thyme. Amazing oils. But we only use them if we have to, right? Because they're strong. But again, they work great and they're safe. But we use them mid-meal if you're to take those. That's essentially everything we do. That's the plan. And then after those 3 months, you do the 3-month CBO, and then you do 3 months of the CBO finisher just to heal and seal. But at that point, it's not really any supplements to take. What I want you to think about is this. Finish that out, and then keep things simple still. Don't deviate too far from the healthy lifestyle that's now where you wanted to be. You've probably wanted to get here for months or years. Stick with it. Enjoy your flex meal or your cheat meal once a week or twice a week. But think about it. It's for your overall health. It's your vitality. Once you fix your gut, everything begins to change. More energy, more stamina, more endurance, much clearer thinking, right? You are sharper. You have better sleep. There's less energy drain on the body because you don't need as much energy to break down all the food because everything is in perfect working order. Keep it that way. That's what you want to do. But remember, if it ever goes off track or anything ever happens, you can follow this plan. The plan will lead you back to where you want to be. So hopefully this was helpful today. My health coaching team, I appreciate all of you. You are the ones who wanted me to do a full show on this so that people, as they're beginning our protocol, can really listen to it. They can understand the science behind it, why it works, and how it's helped thousands and thousands of people all around the world. And for everyone else working with your practitioner, same thing. You just want to follow the fundamentals, right? Follow the fundamentals, and you're going to be able to heal the gut, heal your digestion, and really get to the root cause of a lot of your dis-ease issues. And one last thing, for all of today's show notes, for all of today's links to the labs, for all of the previous podcasts on rotation diet, the Big Five, leaky gut, IgG, etc., head on over to StephenCabral.com/1299 for all those details. I appreciate you. And as always, if this was helpful, please do feel free to pass it along to anyone else you believe it could serve. Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp parts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to stephencabral.com/resources.